So really just kind of want to give a refresher for those who may not be really familiar with rad formation. One of the biggest things that we've been focused on, particularly because as all of us are clinicians, is focusing on streamlining parts of the cancer care workflow, but doing that in a safe way. Really just trying to buy more efficiencies for like-minded professionals. The things that we wish we had when we were in the clinic is what we always say. So we're up to over 1,000 cancer clinics, and this number just continues to grow, and something that we're very proud of. But again, really trying to bring more standardization and automation into the clinic is sort of the premise behind all of the products that we develop. Reducing errors, increasing efficiency, and also improving quality at the same time. So those 6 products we currently have, I am going to highlight ClearCalc today, but just in case you're not familiar, just a little glimpse at our others, which is Auto Contour, which is our automated AI contouring software, EasyFluence, which is our automated 3D planning software, ClearCheck, which pretty much everybody is familiar with this at this point, but that's our automated plan evaluation. And then we also have ChartCheck, which is treatment evaluation, and QuickCode, which is our billing QA software. Jumping into ClearCalc, again, just going to give a kind of quick background for those who may not be familiar. But the whole product was developed because we wanted to improve, again, from our experience in the clinic, sort of this independent secondary calculation process, and do it in a way that was more meaningful and required less steps. So when you're utilizing ClearCalc within Eclipse, you really can run ClearCalc from within the API itself, and you just click save. You can either push it to the ClearCheck report, or you actually can print our report independently. But again, this sort of took out those the middle steps for those who were currently exporting from via DICOM. That said, we do support the DICOM workflow, which I am going to talk about today, so in our standalone application. So really either workflow could work for our users. We do have multiple modality support, so photons, brachytherapy, and electrons. Photon is our finite size pencil beam algorithm that we've sort of radformationized and improved upon, but that allows us to give you fast calculations with the results in that case. Brachytherapy, we are utilizing TG43, and currently for electron, we're using TG71 for a hand calculation. And so the biggest thing with 2.0 is the machine compatibility. So we have added on 6 additional machines with version 2.0. So that is the Gamma Knife, Tomotherapy, Meridian, Unity, as well as superficial and ortho voltage support. One other feature we've added in, so it's not necessarily a new machine, but a new part of the machine, is the CyberKnife MLC calculation. So before we just supported the fixed, and now we are able to do the MLC calculation, and that MLC calc does utilize our finite size pencil beam as well. Treatment planning system compatibility. So this is again where we go from no Eclipse, no problem. You can kind of see the list is pretty long here, of course, Eclipse, but we've gotten into Pinnacle, RayStation, and Monaco, as well as continued support, of course, for Veriseed, Oncentra, Vitesse, BrainLab. We've added Gamma Plan on for our Gamma Knife users, and then of course Multiplan and Precision for our CyberKnife users. And if you don't see your TPS on here, it doesn't mean we don't support it, just means we haven't seen your files yet. So feel free to send those our way. And one of the things we're really working on is making sure we get these features in for our users. And so we're happy to assist with any other TPS compatibility there. So the premise behind the way that we implemented ClearCalc was, again, we always talk about the automation and efficiency, but for us, it was about making the secondary check more tangible, making it provide the user with more data, and not only that, but more data that they could interact with. And so we've added a couple modules into our independent second check that, again, allows the user to sort of tangibly see what that result actually means, because it's one thing to get a percentage difference, it's a totally other thing to be able to see an array of points on the patient's plan and know how the overall performance looks. So again, as I mentioned, we are fully integrated into Eclipse with those for those users who utilize that workflow when we do have the standalone option for the other treatment planning systems. One other component we added in is, it's always sort of this, try and find a point you can find to pass. I remember sitting at a, 9-field split head and neck IMRT plan and having to find multiple points, and that's really just takes a lot of time. And so what we've done is we've added an automatic optimal point selection part into our logic, where we are able to, if we don't find a good point from your plan that's already in there, we're able to find a good point for you as well. And we do that in a way that is clinically significant. So we're not just going to find the first passing point and show you that one, but we're actually going to make sure that it's a good point, well behaved, so away from heterogeneities, in the high dose region, away from the jaw edges, to make sure that we get you those, clinically well behaved points. We've also added in our 3D point dose statistics, so we're actually doing analytics on structures in your plan. First, we started with target structures, but we're looking at adding or allowing the user to add any structure that's in the plan as well, so you're able to get that performance for those structures too. And with the diode calculation module, we did make a change to it to allow users to enter results outside of the application within Eclipse if you're running that way. So that way in the standalone, you're able to enter calculations or results as well, excuse me. Reporting feature, so this has been a huge ask from our users. We have our report now fully customizable. So we've broken it out into individual sections, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like in admin in a bit. But this way you're able to now customize the report, from the header information to what's contained in the results, even to what's contained down in the footer as well. We've added in our log file analysis module. So here you'll be able to pull in any log files that are associated with the plan that you have currently loaded in ClearCalc, and then we'll be able to perform the delivery calculation for you as well and show you the 3D point dose statistics table. So you're able to then quantify what the passing points look like for that plan. And if you haven't seen it yet, we do have a new case study out. For the Northeast Oklahoma Cancer Institute published their findings from utilizing ClearCalc versus their current solution. And they discussed, how easy it was to transition to ClearCalc. So it's another thing we focused on, is making sure data sync is very easy and you can get up and running in actually just a couple of minutes after install. It required 60% fewer steps during their workflow. Of course, that leads to time savings. And they really just began to like the ability to utilize the software and interact with the calculation as well. One other thing we pride ourselves on, knowing that in the clinic, it's hard to wait for a certain feature to be added. And that usually takes a lot of time for most vendors, but we really want to focus on being able to get these features and parts of the product in for our users. So it's hard to believe, but just in May of last year is the first time we released ClearCalc. And very quickly you can see, we added CyberKnife diodes and the 3D point analytics in December. And now, actually, let's just say September, excuse me, we added 6 new machines as well as the log file analysis. And then in Q1 of next year, we are looking to add the photon and electron Monte Carlo options as well. So really just want to, focus on getting these features in quickly for our users and make sure that we do it right as well. All right. So I'm going to jump into the software. Okay. So I'm going to start on the Eclipse side, and then I am going to jump into the standalone so you can kind of see how both of those work. We have a little bit different perspective on each one. But here in Eclipse, I'm going to first load a Breaky plan. So one of the new features that we've added that's highly requested is the treatment schedule. So to be able to add multiple days or a decay schedule to the actual plan itself. So here I've got, just a Breaky plan. I'm going to go ahead and launch into ClearCalc quickly. So again, this is TG43. So we're just doing that hand calculation, and all the data is stored in admin. We do send the sources default with the software, but they are fully customizable in admin as well in case you utilize a different publication than we have. And we're also happy to assist you with that too. So one other feature we've added is the ability to have multiple sources with the same ID. So this is good for really big clinics that may share the same source model. So that name may be the same across multiple of your clinics for that same institution. So we've added this source description in ClearCalc admin. And this way you're able to then identify it to a specific clinic or to a specific machine. And you can then select the correct source from the list here and proceed with the calculation. That way you're sure you have the right calibration date, activity, all that kind of good stuff. So the interface will largely look the same to what it was before. We have added some additional total dwell time information and total channel dwell time information as well. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a lot of new things. The first one, again, is that treatment date calendar that I mentioned. So you can click the plus sign here and very easily add another treatment date to the schedule, and it will populate that new calculation here. So you can see that the times have updated, and you can actually click back and forth between the calculations as well and see that the dwell times do indeed change. So this is actually scaled based on the data, in this case, that I have set up in admin for the source. And you can add multiple dates as well as remove dates as needed from the calendar. When you print to PDF, you can print this in one big PDF, or you can actually designate to have these printed into separate PDFs based on the treatment date as well. So that way, if you want to print them all ahead of time, you can kind of get that out of the way and then just pull them into your record and verify as you utilize them. Also on the left-hand side, you'll see our reporting template options. So this will be a little drop-down. You can set up multiple templates. So if you want to have like a Breaky template, an IMRT template, a 3D CRT template, you can do that here and then select the template you'd like to print before clicking the PDF print button. There's a results comment section. So this way, if you wanted to make a comment or note if there, maybe you want to put the cylinder size or something on here for cylinder HCR, you can absolutely put that here in the comments, and it does get printed out on the PDF report as well. And additionally, in the lower left-hand corner, this has been a big ask as well to approve results. So if you click the approve results, what will you need is someone set up as a user in ClearCalc admin. And then once that user is set up, they'll just enter their username and password here. And then you'll see their name, first name and last name as it appears in admin show up, as well as the date and time stamp of when the approval was. So you can add multiple approvals as well for different users, and these will print on the report if you select to do that too. There is the option, if you don't want to utilize approvals, to hide this from the interface just so it's not over there if you're not going to use it as well. So I'm going to show you a photon plan now. So this is just set up for field rest plan. So one difference you'll see from the Breaky plan going into a photon plan here is the addition of a tolerances dropdown. So we now have different, allow for different tolerances to be set in administration. So you can set just a general tolerance if you'd like. There's a IMRT VMAT tolerance just in case you want to make those a little bit tighter. And then of course we also have an SRS tolerance as well. We will auto select or attempt to auto select the correct tolerance for you based on the characteristics of the plan that we're analyzing. So, we'll look for that modulation for the IMRT plans and try to associate that. And then for SRS, we can very easily look for an applicator for cones and then associate that as well. Of course, you can always toggle between them if you'd like to. And when you do that, if mine were set differently, it will automatically recalc for the plan and then show you the updated results. And if that includes searching for a better point, it will also kick off the optimal point selection logic again. So we're almost redoing the calculation based on the tolerance setting you have set here. One other option when you get into photons is we have this display plan profiles option. So this is really useful for, sorry, I'm out in space, so that's not going to be a good profile there. This is really useful for if you want to troubleshoot a plan, maybe something looks a little odd, and you just want to see what the results look like or get into troubleshooting on a specific plan. So you can look at your sagittal, transverse, and coronal profiles. And you can even look at individual fields specifically. So say you just want to look at, the medial tangent itself. You can see that field performance. And you can also turn off or change the type of heterogeneity corrections, including removing it altogether. So again, this is just more of a troubleshooting just in case you get a result that you want to look at or investigate further. Again, it allows you to interact with the plan. On the calculation points window, we've added a few new things here. So largely it looks familiar, but we've added the ability to add in additional calculation points just in case you want a few more, or in case some people have billing purposes for which they need a set number of calculation points. So absolutely you can set that way. Additionally, as you're scrolling through the plan itself, you'll see some points pop up here. So now when you hover on any of the points that display for the plan result, you'll be able to see the individual field performance for that specific point and determine if maybe you want to change the point a little bit to a different one, or perhaps select different points for different fields. Again, it gives you the option. So, and then you'll still have the option to hold down your left control key and add more points to the plan, as well as changing the calculation point for all fields if you choose to do that. Another change we've made here, we do already have the diodes module, so that is not new, but we've added in the ability to hide fields. So let's say for this specific plan, I want to just put a diode on the medial and the medial and lateral fields, and I'm going to hide the PAB and the superclav fields because I'm not going to put a diode on those. You can then make any adjustments to your off axis. So I'm going to, put a little off axis because this is a half beam. So I've got my little off axis there, and I can actually come down to the BEVs as well, and you'd be able to see once I calculate, there's where my diode location will be as well. So it gives you a little bit of visualization as well as the initial setup. So what I'm going to do with this plan is I'm going to set this up for our therapist, and I'm going to go ahead and put the off axis information in, and then calculate what the diode range would be just by pushing this button. And then if I save it here, what it'll do is I'm going to jump into our standalone application. So that'd be a place where the therapist could then run our standalone and enter the actual values that they read at the machine. So what I've done here is launched just our ClearCalc.exe standalone application. So you see it looks a bit different. But for that plan now, I can come over to the diodes tab and I can search for the patient based on MRN and see any plan IDs that have been saved for that patient, as well as the save date and time. So this allows me to quickly identify, this is that tangent plan that I want to do diodes for. I'm going to go ahead and select this. And what you'll notice is that all the edits that I made in the main interface have been saved here. And then I can very easily enter the results for the specific field and calculate the dose, and then get the results and enter any of the comments, who it was measured by, who it was calculated by as well. Then you can print this to PDF and save it into the patient's record and verify. So that was a really big ask for our diode users, just having a place where you don't have to launch through Eclipse to get into ClearCalc to enter the results again, but now your therapist can launch the standalone from their ancillary computer and enter the diode results and save it to PDF. Additionally, if they save it here, you can also then come in after they review it and Sorry, I didn't save it. That was my fault. And you'll be able to view the entry that they had. And then if you want to put your initials here as well, that could save to PDF too. Now I'm going to kind of stick with photons for just a moment. And while we're talking about that, I'm going to go into our log file analysis module and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to still stay in the DICOM standalone. You can see we made a little bit of changes. We're still kind of tweaking this a little bit, but to how the overall DICOM selection view is now. We also have added the option to include subdirectories. So you no longer have to search within folders each time, but now we'll just pull up all of the plans within a single subfolder or within subfolders of a folder as well. So I'm going to click on the trajectory log plan here. So this is actually a write long that has trajectory logs associated with it. So when I launch it first, it's going to do the normal photon calculation with our FSPB. So you'll see the results show up here. And again, this is pretty normal. One other thing I will say that we added, and I did forget to mention, is our beam's eye views for the fields. So you're able to see the actual field apertures as well as the field fluence, and the calculation point that we've selected can be toggled off and on. And if you have multiple, again, those would all be kind of listed here. But in the log file module, you'll see this new icon in the upper left-hand side on the toolbar. You'll click on the log file analysis button. And what you'll see is we're going to go through and try to find log files in a folder that the user specifies in administration, and find the log files or trajectory, Dynalog files or trajectory log files that are associated to this specific patient and plan. And if you have multiple, the nice thing is we're going to pop up any instances that we have. So if there are multiple, you then can select the correct one that you want for that pre-treatment QA run. So I'm going to highlight this first one and then click OK. So what we're now doing is taking the log files and essentially, re-delivering the plan with those log files themselves. So kind of the big things that pops out at you is the field analysis. So you see the TPS fluence on the left-hand side here. The right-hand side is the delivered fluence, and then you'll see a fluence difference map in between those two. In the log file analysis, we've also done, what we've done is mimicked the 3D point dose statistics table from the results. So if that's something that you utilize there, the nice thing is it kind of translates here to allow you to look at overall structure coverage as well. So what we do for our targets, in this case, we've picked up a CTV, GTV, and PTV, is we're going to find 250 points in that target and give you the overall passing result for that specific target. So you can see how many points we evaluated. So here again, as we do in the main window, for the ClearCalc delivery, we're looking at 250 points. We're going to tell you how many pass at the tolerance that you have set. And again, this is customizable in administration. And then you're able to see the TPS to ClearCalc delivery mean, ClearCalc mean difference, and then the delivery mean difference. So what this does is it quantifies the difference between the original TPS and ClearCalc independent secondary calculation result to the TPS versus the ClearCalc delivery result. So you can kind of compare these two, the differences between the plan calc itself on the ClearCalc side and the delivery calc on the ClearCalc side. And then we'll show you the passing percentage for the plan as well as the delivery. So the reason we went in this method or this sort of mode was because we wanted, there are obviously inherent differences between our FSPB algorithm and the algorithm that you're utilizing to do the initial calculation. So, it's not really an apples to apples comparison in that case, more apples to oranges. And we wanted to give you more of an apples to apples comparison so you could see the ClearCalc calc to the ClearCalc delivery and make sure that that actually matches up. Again, sort of taking out those algorithm differences that you'd see between the TPS and ClearCalc itself. As with the other modules, you can always verify, add comments. And then same thing with the results, comments, and approvals. And then you can print this to PDF as well. So of course, the theme of this is no eclipse, no problem. So I wanted to run through a few of our new machine compatibilities. So one of them is our Unity machine. So here's a prostate plan from a Unity machine. Also, you'll notice every time you click on one of the plans, over here on the right-hand side, we try to give you a glimpse to what is contained in it to make sure before you launch it that that's the correct plan and the plan you intended to launch. So trying to give you as much feedback before you launch into a check, before you get into it and find out it may be the wrong one. So I'm going to launch in here. And we do on the admin side have a machine configuration for Unity. So I'll kind of walk through admin in a moment and sort of take you through all these machines, but just want to give you a look at what the calculation looks like here too. So again, largely looks the same. You're going to see here that we did utilize a lot of, or quite a few ClearCalc points for the calculation. And so those will all be displayed here. And then across the bottom, you'll also still see our calculation parameters table, just like you're used to seeing for any other machine as well. So really looks similar as far as the interface. A few things got taken off that don't apply for the machine itself, but largely will function what you're used to seeing on the other photon related plans. Additionally, we also have this is a Meridian plan. Yeah. So you'll see, functionality wise looks very much the same. I will state that these Meridian plans, we do get plan dose only, so you won't see per field results, but you will see the overall calculation point comparison here for the plan. And then you'll have all the plan parameters down here in the lower section. So stepping through other additions to the Diacom standalone, we have made a few tweaks to the HandCalc modules just to give users a few more options. So we have added in gantry, collimator, and table rotation options that you can enter and then will be printed on it or on the report itself. Places to add bolus thickness, and we'll actually calculate the source to bolus distance for you. Same thing with the calculation depth. And then we've added in a correction factor. So just in case you have a, block factor or an edge of field factor or something you'd like to add into the photon plan, you can put that here, as well as add a comment for what those factors may be entered for. And we've added the option to compare to the TPS MU. So if you want to, after we get the ClearCalc calculated MU, enter the value you got in the TPS, we'll actually calculate the difference on that as well. Same thing for electrons, so added in gantry collimator table and added in the correction factor option here in the table and the TPS MU as well. So superficial and ortho voltage support, I'll jump into admin and kind of show you how that data entry goes. But this is a manual calculation. So instead of using an Excel spreadsheet now, you can utilize ClearCalc to enter the field dose, choose your machine and energy, and then add in your treatment depth calculation and get your meter set here. You can also still utilize your Excel spreadsheet and enter an expected meter set and just do a secondary calculation on that meter set value if you'd like to. On the orthovoltage side, very similar. So again, data is all set up in administration. You'll pick your machine. So again, all these values over here are optional, but just nice to have if you're going to print these out. You can select a machine, energy, so you'll see multiple if those are, you have data for those. You also can hand enter your collimation size, SSD, treatment depth, And we also support blocks for ortho voltage. So if you do have a block, you can define that at the skin as well. And then the timer error will be calculated. I'm sorry, the meter set will be calculated. You can enter a timer error though if you'd like for the data. Gamma Knife has also been added here to the standalone application. So it's all going to be the database connection itself is configured in administration. For once that's set up, what we'll do is you click the Query Gamma Knife Database button. And what this is going to do is go ahead and ping that database and show you a list of the available plans. And we're going to do that in treatment date order. So you'll kind of see that these are sorted here. You can change the sorting. You can also search by patient name as well. So you can select the plan. Let's say we're going to analyze this one. I'll click highlight it and click select. And then you can see the results. So we show you the machine property information, including the calibration date and dose rate, and the plan property information. The reference point dose results will show in that top table. And then we'll show you the skull geometry measurements as well as the shot summary below that. And this is a pretty simple plan, but just gives you an overall idea of what the results will look like. And then of course you can print these to PDF as well. And we've also added in one of the biggest things for us is making sure when you need support that you get that support as quickly as possible. So there is an anonymize and export button here for your Gamma plans. In case we need to help you troubleshoot something, we're able to then do that on our side very quickly. And I already covered diodes, so I'm gonna hop into admin now and kind of show you what those changes are going to look like. So here I mentioned our tolerances. So here are the 3 new set tolerances you can add for general tolerances for your IMRT, VMAT, and SRS. A few other things we've added in is the ability to invert your XY jaw labels. So some users will need that. So that was added in. And then the ability to designate a tomotherapy machine. What that does is then changes the calibration. Excuse me, I clicked the wrong, there we go. The reference dose at calibration depth, and then also changes the reference into minutes because that's what's utilized for the calibration of those machines. So a little bit different than a conventional linear accelerator. So we wanted to make sure that the calibration data reflects how the machine is actually displaying its calibration. We do use a base data set for TOMO, just like we do for conventional linear accelerators. Same thing for the Electa Unity and the Meridian machines. We have all that base data sort of on the back side, and we use that base model to perform the calculation. And we are seeing really good agreement and good results. So really promising and hoping that this works and looks great for our Unity, Meridian, and TOMO users here. On the Electron tab, we have added the ability to utilize a cutout factor library. So a lot of sites are getting rid of their Saraband and being able to do custom blocks. And so what they kind of did before that all went away was created these set cutouts in set sizes and set applicators. So what you're able to do here is enter a code and equivalent square length and description for each applicator as well as the cutout factor. And then you can then just select the cutout code when you perform the calculation, and this gives you a little more flexibility instead of doing a custom cutout or just having a cutout table like we typically did before. So again, just gives an option for those users who are using the cutout factor libraries or this sort of repository of cutout factors they have that are very similar across their machines. And then you can select from the dropdown for the calculation too. So I'll show you what that actually looks like. Yeah, here we go. So on this CAP machine, you can see the cutout code. I actually have set, or I think for the 10 by 10, yep, I have 2. So this would just show, once you pick the applicator, it'll show the available cutouts that you have in your cutout factor library, and then you can then select from those, and the calculation will use that cutout equivalent square length and cutout factor to perform the calculation. We've made it very easy too, if you utilize this, to copy across to other machines. So there's no need to hand enter this every time for each machine, or you can just copy across and then adjust the cutout factor slightly if necessary. On the Breaky tab, I mentioned our ability to now handle multiple sources with the same name. So you can see down here at the bottom, I've got all my VSIR 192 sources. But then with this description, that's what we're populating to allow you to select between different sources for your Breaky units that may use the same source name. And the decay schedule will work with the nominal with ClearCalc decay and the decayed sources. And then you can manually enter the calibration date and strength on the ClearCalc side to truly ensure that that calibration date and strength, that are being used are truly independent or secondary from Eclipse if you're utilizing the Eclipse TPS. Since they are in a separate location, we'll only look at this if you enter them here, instead of looking at just pulling the value from Eclipse. So some users have selected to do that as well. On the diode front, one thing you kind of can't show in some of the plans that I had is we do now have the ability to populate more than one diode per plan. So if you have a 6x diode and a 15x diode, and you have a 6 and 15 breast tangents, we will be able to then populate and correctly associate both diodes to that single plan and perform the calculation for the diodes as well. Superficial, you're able to add multiple units here, but again, very easy to hand enter the energies, the applicator sizes, and absorb dose rate values for that calculation. For orthovoltage, you can customize the collimation itself and import your TAR tables for each of the applicators too. We do support both square and circle applicators in this case. On the report front, you can see all the wonderful new options here we've added, including adding a logo to the report. All these sections are, customizable. As with ClearCalc, so say you just want to have one report template. If it's not a Breaky plan, anything that's non-applicable, we will always skip. So if you're trying to print a photon plan, we're going to skip these Breaky components, and same thing, vice versa. Anything that's just photon related, we would skip when printing a Breaky plan. So we try to take the guesswork out of that for you when you're setting up these templates, just to make it a lot easier and more seamless for our users. But here you can see everything from the plan information at the top to populate, the results information, and then anything you want to show in the footer. Here are your options. On the settings tabs, we've added quite a few things. So first and foremost, I already mentioned the Gamma Plan database setup. So you can set your database version as well as your IP port, username, and password. You can even test the connection here before you get into the software, so you don't have to get all the way in and just find out that you had it set up wrong. So this is fairly easy to do, and usually most people have access to this port and this port and the guest username and password combination, so you can get that configured. For the scaling convention, so this again is where we've also trying to support other treatment planning systems. So DICOM is always sent in that top option, so that IEC 61217 is DICOM IEC standard. So that's how we always get plans when we're utilizing plans in the DICOM standalone. But what this allows you to do is then select something else in case you use another standard, or you even have the option to set this on a per machine basis. So let's say, some of your machines use one convention and some another. You can come back into the Photon tab now, and you can set the per machine scaling convention here. So it gives you a little more flexibility just in case you have multiple scaling conventions on different machines. And then the display options, we really have just gotten into letting you decide whether to activate or deactivate things from view. So the top two options were already there, but here we show the Fluence overlays. You can have it always be on. the ability to change field weights for SRS cone plans. So this is something that's been a little tricky. Right now we pull across the calc point dose for the isocenter and then just divide it equally among all the beams because it doesn't ever come across, particularly in DICOM, on how that's actually divided out. But when you have this selected, when we recognize that a plan is an SRS cone, we're going to pop up a window and let you just toggle those TPS doses to the correct value for each field, just so when you print it out, it's actually reflective of what the plan says as well. Another thing we're adding in is for multi-target plans to automatically choose additional calc points for each PTV, CTV, or GTV based on what you select. So when you check this, you can check one, you can check all of them, and it lets you decide if you want to have more points, just in case we detect 2 PTVs instead of just one. In the general settings, you have the option, again, as I mentioned, to toggle the approvals. And then that includes subdirectories option. And this is where I talked about the Breaky plans, if you wanted to print all of them in one PDF, or if you want to split them out into individual PDFs and utilize them that way. So that gives you those options here. And then the final settings we have added in are adding additional calc points. So from our CyberKnife users, we've gotten feedback that they need to have or would like to have, a set number of points. What this option does is recognizes a CyberKnife plan and then goes ahead and adds an additional amount of points based on the value you have here. So in this case, I have 9. So the plan will actually pick the first point and then pick 9 other best points to display in the calculation points table so that you don't have to go through and assign those manually, but now they're there automatically for those CyberKnife specific plans. And then on the right-hand side here, you'll see is where you designate your log file directory location. And for those log files, what you typically can do is utilize PeerSync, or you may already have it set up, to transfer the log files off of your MLC controller machine onto a network drive, and you can very easily access the log files that way. So I'm not sure it entirely does justice to all the work we've put in, but that is a general overview of all the operating features in the software, as well as all the admin options we've added in. And also, I think kind of shows why we chose to call it a 2.0 and not a 1.8, because it really is just chock full of so many new features. And hopefully, we'd love to get everyone's feedback on this as we get it released. And yeah, let us know what you think. But with that, I'll hand it back to Liz. So hopefully those rights got sent your way, Liz. Perfect. And I can't hear you, Liz. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me now, Christine?
I can. There you are.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, yeah, great job on the presentation. I know I'm looking forward to getting to use all these features, and I'm sure others are too. But we do have some great questions that are coming in, so we can go over those next. So first up, we do have someone that asked about what information is required to start using the electron calculations, including the sector integration analysis.
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a couple options on the Electron front. We do have base data that we have built in anytime you install the software on as like an Eclipse CAP machine, and it really is just Eclipse base data for like a 21 series machine. So that data you can just kind of utilize out of the box as you sort of get familiar with ClearCalc. The other option is we have the ability to synchronize data with Eclipse. So what we have this button that you can click in admin and just point us to where your beam data folder is on the Eclipse side. And what we'll do is we'll just pull the PDDs, the applicator factors, and populate those values as they are in your Eclipse machine. But then you could either use our default cutout factors or enter your own table, or same thing for inverse square correction. You can utilize our default inverse square information, which we do support both effective SSD and air gap correction, or you can enter your own values for those as well. So those are kind of the things: energies, applicators, applicator factors, cutout factors, PDDs, and inverse square.
Excellent. Yeah, and I
And
think,
then, sorry, I didn't talk about the sector integration.
oh, sure.
uh, so the sector integration part is just built into our software. So what we're going to do is essentially take the cutout that comes to us with the plan, and we're going to perform the sector integration on our side. So there is always the option, though, to just use user entered, because we do have some users that don't want to use sector integration, and they just want to enter their own cutout factor. And by all means, again, that is an option with ClearCalc, so you can do that too.
Excellent. And I have to say, yeah, Christine, you and the team have done a great job with the setup, making this, especially for electrons, very simple, right? And then you can always customize it from there. Excellent. All right, more questions. So here's another one asking about all of the different points that you're using in the log file analysis. Can you evaluate more than 250 points?
So currently, no. We've set it up that way just to make sure it's not super slow. But it's something that we're always looking at improving and making better. And the reason that we picked the 250 is because that's the same resolution we use in the calc. So to make those kind of cross comparable, we also have to increase the resolution on the calculation side, which would make the calcs go a lot slower. So for us, it's sort of a trade-off between, getting you results quickly and meaningfully without unduly slowing down the calculation itself. So it's sort of always this trade-off on that resolution front. But that's why we stuck with 250. And I will say, as we get to smaller targets, so as a target decreases in size, we still try to aim for that 250 points if we can get them. So we're kind of slowly, decreasing the resolution for those small targets too. But yeah, so for now it is at 250, but like I said, we're always developing and can't leave anything left. So something we can definitely look at.
Excellent. We have another question asking about Breaky calculations and if it's possible to use ClearCalc with Nucleotron.
Yes, so we do have nucleotron users. I'm not sure of all the treatment planning systems because we were a variant user at my clinic, but we do support Oncentra. Um, and maybe there was one other one that we also support. The name fails me now, but um, and if you ever have any questions or if you want to check out compatibility, by all means, you can always send us like an anonymized RT plan file and we can check out compatibility for you and just see if there's anything that we need to add on our front. But as far as we know, most of the Nucleotron TPSs on the market, we are compatible with.
Great. One of the attendees noticed when you were showing the admin application that there was a section to add SRS cones. And so she was just wondering if you can perform a ClearCalc second check using Eclipse CDC plans.
Yeah, so we do utilize the Eclipse, any Eclipse cone plans, we can perform calculations for those. The calculation is just a little bit different in that currently we have it set up as a TMR calculation. So what we do is we pull the same, when you synchronize, as I mentioned before, you have that option to synchronize data. When you sync that data, we pull all your cone sizes, cone factors, TMR, and all the calibration info from Eclipse that way. And again, those are all scaled. So we don't ever just use the data you have in Eclipse. We always sort of fit them to our base data. Again, that kind of keeps our independence, making sure that you're truly using a second set of data and not just a copy of the data you have. But yes, so SRS cones are supported in calculations with ClearCalc.
Wonderful. All right, this one looks like more of a feature request, but here someone's asking, will the log file analysis be automated in the future?
Yes, it's definitely something that we have talked about. So I always say hopefully.
Excellent. All right. Uh, this is a more of like a licensing question. Does ClearCalc have a separate license from ClearCheck? I can even answer that one for you. So yes, they do have separate licenses. Um, Here's another great question. When is the expected release date for 2.0?
That is a great question. We are really hopeful, here in the next few weeks. So we always, it's hard to give an exact date, but we are coming into the final stretch. So I will say it's, really close, probably like 2 weeks or so, is what we're looking at.
Sounds good. All right. And so here's another question from an attendee. Um, they look like they're a current ClearCalc user, and their fields in ClearCalc appear in alphabetical or numerical order. Is there a way to keep them in the order they appear in Eclipse?
Yeah, so this is like we have the same thing in Clear Check, right? So the API sends us the fields and typically not in the order even that they are in the API. But we can look at adding the ability to sort them. But essentially across the API, we don't really have an exact field order. And a lot of times what we found with our current customers is that the order the API sends them to us isn't the order even that they are shown in Eclipse. But we can definitely look at adding sorting options for fields in the future.
Great. All right, here's a question about CyberKnife. It says for CyberKnife, you mentioned fixed and MLC. What about the iris?
Yeah, sorry, that was a lapse on my part. We do include or do support Iris as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. All right, a few more questions here. Um, there was an issue with a prostate brachy plan coming from Oncentra. Is this resolved? So this might be more of a specific question, but I don't know if you have any information on that question.
Um, I cannot recall honestly off the top of my head. I will say that bugs or things that we find that are incorrect are one of the first things that we do correct when we release a version. So I would say, cross my fingers, yes. But it'd probably be better to follow up directly and let's make sure that it is in to get that out too.
All right, great. Here's another feature request. Is it possible to add ICD dose measurement instead of a diode?
Not currently. But again, yeah, that probably would be a feature request, something we'd have to do down the line.
All right, great. Uh, Another question here about the log files. Is it possible to sum the log files?
So currently we leave them separated. The reason we did that is so that you can find each beam sort of, uh, you can visualize each beam separately instead of sort of smashing them all together and maybe missing where there may be like a leaf lag or something. Um, but we could look in the future at possibly having not just individual fields, but also a composite delivery as well.
All right, sounds good. Um, and this is one, yep, I think will be an easy question, but does ClearCheck or ClearCalc check for collision issues, especially with SRS cone plans that use arcs with couch kicks?
Yeah, so Clear Check is the one there. They have a collision check module that's actually really awesome. And you can actually even build in like a warning ring around it, just because I know sometimes, especially as you get into couch kicks, you don't scan the patient all the way down to, their waist, particularly, or even, past their shoulders for those SRS plans. So you can utilize that collision check module in Clear Check to do that. And yeah, if you need any follow-up or support or have a specific plan you want to look at, our support team is awesome. And I know they'd be happy to walk through that too.
Great. Sounds good. Well, um, yeah, those are all the questions for today. So I just want to say thank you so much, Christine, for a great presentation, and thank you to our attendees for all these great questions coming through. And we look forward to 2.0.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks so
everyone.
much. Have a great day.